right, welcome back. We're going deeper into this be your own bank thing. And this time we're going to tackle borrowing in DeFi. Remember how we talked about earning interest on your crypto? Well, guess what? You can actually use that crypto to borrow and unlock even more possibilities.
Yeah, it's really cool how DeFi borrowing lets you tap into your crypto's value without actually selling it. It's like having this secret weapon for financial flexibility.
Okay, so for anyone who's just tuning in, could we do a super quick recap of what DeFi and these DeFi protocols are all about?
Absolutely. DeFi stands for decentralized finance. It's basically a financial system built on blockchains. You're cutting out those traditional middlemen like banks, and these DeFi protocols, like AAVE or Compound, are basically platforms built on smart contracts that automate all that lending and borrowing.
So instead of dealing with a bank, you're interacting with code. It's kind of mind-bending, right? But how does this whole borrowing thing actually work?
It all comes down to collateral. You deposit your crypto, let's say Ethereum, into a protocol. And that crypto acts as collateral, like a security deposit, allowing you to borrow another asset against it.
Oh, so it's kind of like putting down a deposit on a rental car, but instead of a car, you're getting, say, stable coins.
Exactly. And because things can get a little volatile in the crypto world, these protocols use something called over-collateralization, which basically means you need to deposit more crypto than the value you're borrowing, just to keep everything safe.
So if I want to borrow like $10,000 worth of stable coins, I might need to put down like $15,000 worth of Ethereum as collateral.
Yeah, that's the general idea. But the specific ratio depends on the protocol and the assets involved. Some assets are considered riskier than others, so they'll require a higher collateralization ratio.
Okay, that makes sense. But why go through all this trouble? Why not just sell some of my Ethereum if I need some cash?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Imagine your Ethereum doubles in price while you have that stablecoin loan going. You still benefit from that growth because you haven't sold your Ethereum.
Hold on, so I could actually profit from my Ethereum going up, even while using it as collateral.
Precisely. And there's more. If your collateral appreciates significantly, you can actually withdraw a portion of it while still maintaining that required collateralization ratio. It's like unlocking extra capital based on your crypto's success.
Okay, so let's make this real. Imagine I have like $25,000 worth of XRP, and I want to make a down payment on a property. Can I actually use my XRP to borrow the money without selling it?
Absolutely. Let's say you want to borrow $10,000 in stablecoins for that down payment. You would deposit your XRP on a platform like AAVE. They might require 150% collateralization ratio in this case. So your $25,000 in XRP would more than cover the $10,000 loan.
So I get the stablecoins, use them to make the down payment.
Yeah.
And I still own my XRP, hoping it goes to the moon. But what happens if the price of XRP crashes?
Well, that's where that over-collateralization comes in. If the value of your XRP drops too much, the protocol might automatically sell a portion of it just to make sure that loan is still covered. This protects the lenders who provided the stablecoins you borrowed.
So there's definitely some risk involved. It sounds like I need to keep a close eye on the price of my collateral, and maybe even add more if things get a little shaky.
Exactly. DeFi borrowing offers some amazing flexibility, but it also requires active management and a good understanding of the risks involved. But if you do it right, it can be a very powerful tool.
This is making me rethink how I manage my crypto. But what about loan repayment? Do I have to make monthly payments like a traditional loan?
That's a very common question, and the answer is not necessarily. In most DeFi protocols, you don't have those fixed monthly payment deadlines. The focus is on maintaining that healthy collateralization ratio we talked about.
Okay, so as long as the value of my collateral stays above that required ratio, I'm basically good.
Exactly. You are paying interest as it accrues, and you can choose to pay down the principal or even the entire loan whenever you want, as long as your collateral still covers it.
Okay, this is kind of blowing my mind a little bit. It's so different from how traditional loans work. But hold on, I'm curious. What if I want to become the lender? Can I lend my crypto to someone else using DeFi?
Absolutely. You can absolutely become a lender in the DeFi space, and there's actually a couple of ways to do it. You could lend your stablecoins directly to a friend or a business partner, just like we talked about earlier, or you can become a liquidity provider on platforms like AAVE or Compound.
A liquidity provider? What's that all about?
Think of it as contributing to a pool of money. You deposit your crypto into this lending pool, and borrowers can access those funds by providing their own collateral. And you earn interest based on the demand for borrowing that particular asset.
So instead of lending to one specific person, I'm essentially lending to like a whole bunch of people at the same time.
Exactly. It's a way to diversify your lending and potentially earn passive income on your crypto.
This whole DeFi lending and borrowing thing is fascinating, but it also sounds pretty complex. What if I want more control? Can I actually build my own lending protocol?
Well, it's definitely possible, but it's not for the faint of heart. Building a lending protocol requires a very deep understanding of blockchain technology, smart contract development, and security audits. You're essentially creating your own financial system from scratch.
Wow, that is intense. But I guess that's the beauty of DeFi. It empowers individuals to take control of their finances in ways we never thought possible.
Exactly. DeFi is all about innovation and pushing those boundaries of what's possible in finance.
All right, before we get too carried away building our own protocols, let's take a step back and dive into those mechanics of loan repayment. How does it all work in practice?
Let's break it down. After a quick break, stay tuned.
All right, so we've talked about using crypto as collateral and even becoming a lender in DeFi. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty here. How does loan repayment actually work in this crazy decentralized world?
Well, it's a lot more flexible than traditional loans. With most DeFi protocols, you don't have those, rigid monthly payment deadlines. The key is really just maintaining that healthy collateralization ratio.
Right, we talked about that. So if the value of my collateral stays above that required ratio, I don't need to worry about making regular payments.
Well, not necessarily regular payments like you'd have with a mortgage or something. You will be accruing interest, of course, and you can choose to pay that down as you go. But the beauty of DeFi is that you can repay the principal or even the entire loan whenever you want, as long as your collateral still covers it.
That's a game changer. No more stressing about due dates or late fees. But what about when the value of my collateral goes up? We briefly touched on collateral withdrawals, but I'd love to hear more about how that works.
Yeah, that's where DeFi borrowing gets really powerful. Let's go back to our example where you borrowed $10,000 in stablecoins using $25,000 worth of XRP as collateral.
And then the price of XRP skyrocketed to like $50.
Exactly. Now your collateral is worth a whopping $500,000. You could just leave it as is, but DeFi gives you the power to actually leverage that appreciation strategically.
So I can withdraw some of that XRP and use it to pay down my loan.
Precisely. You can unlock a portion of your XRP, enough to maintain that required 150% collateralization ratio, and then use that to reduce your debt or even completely pay off the loan.
Wait, so not only do I potentially profit from the XRP's price increase, but I could also wipe out my loan without having to jump through all those hoops like traditional refinancing.
It's a whole different ballgame. DeFi lending gives you that flexibility to capitalize on market movements and manage your loans in a way that aligns with your financial goals.
I'm seeing the be your own bank potential here. But we talked about being a lender to like a friend. What are some other ways to lend money using DeFi?
Well, becoming a liquidity provider is another very popular option. Platforms like AAVE and Compound, they rely on these liquidity pools for borrowers to access funds.
So instead of lending directly to a person, I'm contributing to a pool of funds that anyone can borrow from.
That's the idea. You deposit your crypto into a lending pool, and borrowers can access those funds by putting up their own collateral. And you earn interest based on the demand for borrowing that specific asset.
It sounds like a way to diversify my lending and potentially earn some passive income. But are there any downsides to being a liquidity provider?
Well, there's always some level of risk involved. One thing to consider is what's called impermanent loss. And this can happen when the price of the asset you deposited into the liquidity pool changes significantly compared to the other asset in the pair.
Okay, that sounds a little complex. Can you break that down a little more?
Sure. Imagine you contribute to a liquidity pool with equal values of ETH and a stablecoin. Now, if ETH's price increases significantly, the pool rebalances to maintain that equal value ratio. So you'll end up with less ETH and more of that stablecoin than you initially deposited.
So even though ETH's price went up, I might actually end up with less value overall because of this rebalancing?
Yeah. That's the potential risk with impermanent loss. It's called impermanent because if the price of ETH returns to its original level, the loss disappears. However, if you had simply held your ETH, you would have profited more from that price increase.
So it's like a trade-off between potential gains from providing liquidity and the risk of impermanent loss if prices fluctuate significantly.
Exactly. It's really essential to understand the mechanics of liquidity pools and impermanent loss before diving in. But with careful consideration and research, it can be a very rewarding way to participate in DeFi.
This is also fascinating, but it's clear that DeFi requires a certain level of knowledge. and comfort with risk.
Yeah.
Are there any resources that you would recommend for people who want to learn more and start exploring these possibilities?
Oh, absolutely. There are tons of great resources out there. Reputable DeFi platforms often have detailed documentation and educational materials on their websites. You can also find educational articles, videos, and communities dedicated to DeFi all over the internet.
And of course, it's always wise to start small. Experiment with different protocols. And never invest more than you can afford to lose.
Absolutely. DeFi is an exciting and rapidly evolving space, but it's super crucial to approach it with caution and a commitment to continuous learning.
Right, before we wrap up our deep dive into DeFi borrowing, I have one more question that's been bouncing around in my head. We talked about the possibility of building our own lending protocols, but is that something that's actually within reach for, say, a regular person with some tech skills, or is it purely for like seasoned developers?
That's a great question. And honestly, that's what makes DeFi so groundbreaking. While building a full-fledged lending protocol is a complex undertaking, the tools and resources are becoming more accessible. Platforms like Ethereum and other blockchains, they offer these developer-friendly environments and frameworks that can simplify the process.
So it's not exactly a weekend project, but it's not entirely out of reach for someone who's willing to put in the time and effort to learn.
Exactly. There are even communities and online courses dedicated to teaching people how to build on the blockchain. It's amazing to think that individuals now have the potential to create their own financial systems and applications.
That opens up a world of possibilities. Imagine a future where people are creating customized lending protocols, tailored to specific communities or niches.
It's already happening. We're seeing the emergence of specialized lending platforms for artists, musicians, even small businesses. DeFi is truly empowering individuals and communities to take control of their financial destinies.
My deep divers, we've covered a lot of ground in this exploration of DeFi borrowing, from using your crypto as collateral to becoming a lender, and even the potential to build your own protocols. It's clear that DeFi is transforming the financial landscape.
And this is just the beginning. As DeFi continues to evolve, we can expect even more innovative applications and possibilities to emerge.
So what's the one key takeaway we want to leave our listeners with as they continue their be-your-own-bank journey?
DeFi empowers you to take control of your finances in unprecedented ways. But with this power comes responsibility. It's essential to approach DeFi with a thirst for knowledge, a healthy dose of skepticism, and a commitment to understanding the risks involved.
Wise words. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the exciting world of DeFi borrowing. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious. Wow, that was a deep dive indeed. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of what's possible with DeFi borrowing.
Yeah, it really is a vast and dynamic space, constantly evolving and pushing the boundaries of traditional finance. But even from this glimpse, it's clear that DeFi is a total game changer.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, let's distill this down to the essentials. What are the key takeaways our listeners should remember as they continue their be-your-own-bank journey?
Well, I think first and foremost, DeFi borrowing offers unparalleled flexibility. You know you're in control. You choose when to repay, how much to borrow, and how to manage your collateral. It's a far cry from the rigid structures of traditional loans.
Right, no more waiting for bank approvals or dealing with mountains of paperwork. But this freedom comes with responsibility, right?
Exactly. DeFi requires a proactive approach. You need to stay informed about those market fluctuations, manage your collateralization ratios, and understand the risks associated with different protocols.
It's not a set-it-and-forget-it system. But for those who are willing to learn and engage, DeFi borrowing can unlock some incredible opportunities. Like what?
Well, imagine needing a short-term loan, but not wanting to sell your crypto holdings. DeFi lets you borrow against your assets, while still benefiting from that potential price appreciation.
So it's like having a financial safety net built into your crypto portfolio. And if your assets do well, you can even use that growth to reduce your debt through those collateral withdrawals.
Precisely. It's a level of financial control that was simply unimaginable a few years ago. And beyond borrowing, DeFi opens up avenues for becoming a lender yourself.
Right. We talked about lending directly to friends or contributing to liquidity pools. It's amazing to think that anyone can become a lender in this decentralized system.
It truly democratizes finance, empowering individuals to participate in ways that were previously exclusive to large institutions.
But as we wrap up this deep dive, there's one question that lingers in my mind, and I'm sure our listeners are wondering the same thing. What does the future hold for DeFi?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? DeFi is evolving at an astonishing pace. We're seeing innovations in lending, borrowing, and even more complex financial instruments emerging every day.
It's almost impossible to predict where it will go next. But one thing is, certain DeFi is challenging the very foundations of traditional finance.
And this disruption is ultimately a good thing. It forces us to rethink how financial systems should work, who they should serve, and how we can leverage technology to create a more inclusive and accessible financial future.
So to our listeners who are feeling inspired, a little overwhelmed, or maybe even a bit of both, where should they go from here? What's the next step on their DeFi journey?
The best advice I can give is to stay curious. Keep learning, exploring, and experimenting. Dive deeper into specific protocols. Join those DeFi communities. And don't be afraid to ask questions.
And remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand about DeFi, the better equipped you'll be to navigate this exciting new world and unlock its potential for yourself.
Exactly. The future of finance is being shaped right now, and DeFi is at the forefront of this transformation. So keep exploring, stay engaged, and who knows, you might just be the one to build the next groundbreaking DeFi application.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into DeFi borrowing. Until next time, keep diving deep and embrace the power of decentralized finance.